Last night was the first time in 10 years since my son's been born that I've been able to take him trick-or-treating on Halloween because I was able to leave the restaurant. This is a place in Boston. They were getting 150 calls a night. It was chaos when I first went in there. Now you walk in there and it's quiet.
I'm Jake Aaron Villarreal, born and raised in Silicon Valley, and here to take you behind the scenes to share what it's like to be a startup founder, the journey they're on, the problems they face, the products they build, and an effort to make our lives better. I'm excited to have with us today Christian Wiens of Loman AI. Christian, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jake. Happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. I know we spent some time a week or two back about what you're building and why it's important, and I'm fascinated by how it's impacting not just operators of businesses, but also people that are a part of that, that are going to those businesses. So we'll dive into that. Before we do, Christian, where are you joining us from today?
Austin, Texas. Beautiful 95-degree heat and humidity, Austin, Texas. It's wonderful out here right now, though. Summers are brutal when you're from California, but it's nice out here right now.
Yeah. Well, we know you're from California. You went to UC Berkeley. You got a great background. Let me give the audience a little bit of kind of you and kind of what you're building. So a little bit about Loman AI. It's a leading voice AI platform that's transforming how restaurants handle every phone call. Christian's a serial entrepreneur with deep roots in the restaurant world. He knows firsthand how missed calls and overwhelmed staff have costed operators millions. So in 2024, he set out to build something better. An AI phone agent that doesn't just answer, it acts. It takes orders, books tables, processes payments, upsells, and integrates directly with the systems restaurants already use. So I'm excited to jump into this, Christian, and learn a little bit more about really how it's impacting the industry. Before we do that, though, give us a little background of your origin story. How did you get into the startup world? And is this your first startup? Talk a little bit about you and kind of maybe your earlier life that kind of shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah. Born in Hawaii, moved to California when I was like 9 years old. And I guess before we talk about startups, probably pertinent to talk a little bit about restaurants. I all throughout basically the time, from the time I started middle school all the way till I left for college, I worked in a restaurant in the front of house. I grew up in a town near a town called San Luis Obispo, which is kind of on the central coast of California. I worked in this beach town called Pismo Beach at a fast casual barbecue place called Moe's Barbecue. And it's a super heavy kind of beach town in Southern California, lots of traffic, tourists, right? And so I worked in that restaurant every single summer. I guess it was like 6, 7, almost 8 years. And that would shape what we're doing today. But after high school, went to college, went to school at UC Berkeley. I've been building businesses since I was little, right? I sold Costco muffins for 4 times their price when I was in high school, and I was making a lot of money doing that. You know, I was flipping Pokemon cards, flipping cell phones on eBay when I was younger. Me and a couple of my friends started what actually was like a Spotify competitor while I was in college. Didn't work out, but you know, I've been building stuff ever since I was younger. I built an e-commerce business that did pretty well that we sold before I started this. But yeah, since I left Berkeley, I've been building businesses, but also I've been working at early stage software companies. So I was my first job ever was I was a BDR basically at the time. This is like 2015. The term BDR wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah.
Predictable Revenue had just come out, that book. If you know that book, Aaron Ross, kind of the whole where the term BDR AE got popularized. And I came into this company, it's called Auto Vitals. They did workflow automation software for auto repair shops, similar customer actually to what we're selling now, kind of similar SMB type customer. And I went in as what was called like a sales assistant, and I read that book and I just bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, didn't know any different. I went to the head of sales. I was like, hey, we're doing sales wrong. Like we should be doing it like this. And, you know, he shrugged me off when I first got there. But after 6 months of like persistently like trying to tell him like, no, we need to like build this BDR team. You know, sellers need to be selling. We did it. We tripled the business in like 2 years. And I led a BDR team of over 18 by the time I left. I'm kind of quasi-technical. Like I'd say like I know how to code, but you don't really want to push my code to production. So I'm a go-to-market person at heart, but I split my time between doing kind of like marketing, technical digital marketing type stuff, and then selling. I've been selling since I was little, but I also do a lot of kind of that stuff. So did that, was successful kind of doing that and building that team. And then the CEO of a company in Santa Barbara, which was where I was living after college. I've lived in San Francisco for a little bit, but then moved down to Santa Barbara. He had started a company called Ansible before, sold that to Red Hat, a large enterprise IT operations software company. Was starting a new company called Anchor, and he had me come and join that as the first go-to-market hire. I was like the third employee at the business. I literally like built the website, built the social media profiles, left that after 3 years after we had gotten to 10 million in revenue, and basically to do the same thing. Like a CEO of an AI company, this company called Mix Mode. The CEO reached out to me and said, "Hey, saw what you did over at Anchor, which was the business I was just at. I want you to come do the same thing. We're starting this business." We were building like complex, unsupervised learning models for like super enterprise government customers. And I was the fifth employee there, first person selling, first person doing any sort of go to market. Kind of did the exact same thing there. When I left that company, they had raised a Series B. They were doing multiple tens of millions in revenue. I moved out to Austin during COVID. Actually, I was still working at that company at the time. 2021, I think we moved out to here. I met my co-founder, Jansen and Anita. My co-founders, Jansen and Anita, rock climbing here in Austin. I'm a big outdoors person. I love surfing and climbing and just generally doing things outdoors. That's probably why I said, it was 95 degrees because I hate going outside when it's this hot. But yeah, I met them rock climbing a few years before we started the business. And one day we were literally up on a rock wall and I was next to one of my co-founders, Jansen, like he was hanging on a harness and I was on a harness. And I was like, why have we never talked about like starting a business? He's like one of the most cracked like engineers that I know, or probably the most. And then I'm a go-to-market person. Anita does a lot of the same sort of like AI stuff and engineering. And it just made a lot of sense. So we got to talk and went and had a beer one night and we were like, we should build something. This was around 2023, like the winter of 2023, and LLMs were obviously like pumping onto the scene. And early 2020, we didn't know what we wanted to do. We had some ideas. We built a dev tool that actually got like a decent amount of people on the wait list to use, like over 5,000 people wanted to use it.
Wow.
It was interesting, but we didn't really have our heads in it. Then in early 2024, a voice AI demo came out. I can't remember if it was like OpenAI released it or somebody released this voice AI demo, and I saw it and we both saw it. We were just sitting there one day, like working on this project, and we both immediately were like, this is what we want to do. Like we need to build something. This is going to transform how people interact with digital spaces. Like I'm a big voice proponent. I do speech to text. I probably talk more of the words that come onto my computer or my phone, right? I do speech to text probably 80% of the time. I think voice is the best modality for interacting with people. Either one-on-one people or through digital spaces. And so rest was history. I went out, I talked to a bunch of different restaurant owners. I also talked to a bunch of different other types of businesses, really quickly figured out that restaurants was the right place to be. Obviously my background lends itself to it as well. And we started building the product, and now today we've got thousands of customers. We're growing, with a leading voice AI for restaurants platform in the industry, and we have big plans. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, really cool. So it's one thing to come up with an idea. It's another to understand there's a market opportunity for it too. And then you got to build it, and you got to hope that people let use it. And, you can charge them a certain amount. They're willing to pay it. But what was the moment where you said, I understand restaurants because I've been in that space. I understand there's a problem in restaurants and how they operate. I think there's a better way to do this. So for those that have never worked in a restaurant, what's the operation like? What's the challenge? Why is your product suited today to solve a problem that they have? And what is that problem?
Yeah, so just to explain the product up front, and then I'll get into some of those things. We build a voice AI for restaurants. And so what that means is we build a tool that answers the phone at a restaurant when somebody calls. When someone calls a restaurant, and you might not think people call restaurants anymore, and you would be wrong. Around 30% of revenue that still comes into the restaurants every year in the US, which is over $1 trillion, by the way, of revenue, comes from the phone. So a lot of that is when people call in pickup orders or delivery orders, right? But a lot of that is also when people call to make a reservation and they book that revenue right there. Or they're calling because they want to get a catering order or they have a question, right? Restaurants get inundated with phone calls still. It's really funny. A lot of people are like, people don't call restaurants anymore. I think on the coasts, that's probably like the predominant thinking, which is actually still not true because most of our customers are on the East Coast and West Coast. But our tool, what it does, it's a human-like voice AI that answers the phone. It can take orders. It can book reservations. It can answer questions. It can do anything that a human host can do. And it answers in a way that's so human-like that the person on the other end of the phone doesn't really know. We have some metrics around this that show like 40% of people don't even know they're speaking to an AI because it's that good. It's a huge operational problem to answer the phone at a restaurant. Restaurants run on rush periods and slow periods, right? And so lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever type the restaurant is, there's a set amount of hours where they staff up, but they're still way understaffed because it gets really busy. They're getting orders from online. They're getting people walking in. They might have a full dining room if it's a full service place, and they're getting phone calls. And restaurants in 2026 miss over 40% of the phone calls they get if they're not using a voice AI. That's 40% of that 30% of revenue that's just walking out the door. And if somebody calls you 3 times, the third time, if you don't answer, they're not going to call back. It's like 87% of people said that they don't call back after the third time. So it's really interesting. There's this need for something that can answer the phone at the front of house for a restaurant. Employees working in the front of house of restaurants typically aren't, your super seasoned, long-time employee that knows everything about the restaurant. It's mostly high school kids or college kids that just need a job, just like I was, right? They might be having a bad day when they pick up the phone and when they talk to you. So the experience is mixed. They're not answering the phone half the time, right? There's just so many reasons why the phone is a problem for restaurants. They're missing calls. They're putting people on hold. It's disruptive to the whole flow of a busy restaurant. So what we figured out was we can answer 100% of those calls, and we can actually answer more than 100% of the calls. We can answer multiple calls at once. We can answer up to 50 calls at once for the same restaurant. Now, that's never happened. I think the most we ever had was 8 at one time for one restaurant. But we can actually increase that number of calls you get, and we can provide 100% coverage for a lot cheaper than hiring a human to do this. Some of the restaurants we talk to, they have 3 people sitting in the back of the restaurant with POS systems, point of sale systems. Those are things like Toast, Square, Clover, where the restaurant does business, right? That's where they take your payment and stuff like that. And they're just sitting on the phone. Right. And if you're in Massachusetts or California or New York, you're paying somebody $20 an hour to do that. Right. That adds up really, really fast. So we can do it for cheaper. We can do it better. We can provide a more streamlined and curated experience to the brand. And we can ensure that we are automatically upselling every single time the phone call happens. Right. And so it's just an all around obvious, better experience. And it's shown in our kind of go to market. Like when we were first doing this, I honestly didn't know how well it would present to these restaurant owners. But one thing I tell people is I've literally never sold anything that is this kind of, I don't want to say the word easy, but I've never sold anything that's this easy to sell. Like restaurants are begging for the tool. We get an insane amount of inbound leads every day coming to us saying, hey, I'm really interested in the service. I need help. I can't answer my phone. My people are horrible at answering the phone. Right. And so we're in this really awesome position to capture that demand and provide a service that helps restaurant owners,
Yeah. Really cool. What's the biggest surprise for you when you started to build this product and then you were bringing it into the market, like responses from potential customers or prospects or, the product itself, questions they were asking for, features that maybe you didn't think of or maybe you did think of that's really solving their problem?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll give you a couple things. I think the first one would be, I didn't actually realize how much of an impact the product would have on the day-to-day flow or the lives of the operators that use the tool, right? I can give you one really good example of this. I had a restaurant owner call me last year after Halloween, like the day after Halloween. He was like, Christian, thank you so much. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, I didn't know what he was talking about at the time. And he was like, last night was the first time in 10 years of since my son's been born, that I've been able to take him trick or treating on Halloween, because I was able to leave the restaurant because I knew that it wasn't chaos going on in the restaurant. So this guy got to go take his kid trick or treating because we had the restaurant running in such an efficient manner. This is a place in Boston. They were getting 150 calls a night. It was chaos when I first went in there. Now you walk in there and it's quiet. It's not quiet. I mean, it's a restaurant. So there's tickets pumping out of the machines. There's a ton of back of house workers like chefs, cooks, just making food, handing it out to DoorDash people, to people that are walking in the door. That was one of the things that the sort of impact was pretty amazing. And then kind of on the more negative side, one thing I didn't realize was how much people hate AI. And I don't want to say hate AI. I would say let's quote robots. Okay. So this is so funny, but I mean, I should have seen this in hindsight, but like when we would do ads on like social media or something, you get so many comments of people where they're like, I hate phone robots. Like, these are the worst. Because think about it. Prior to voice AI, robots on the phone were what you get when you call Bank of America or Capital One, where you're literally, it's like a meme. You're screaming into the phone, like, give me a human. I want to talk to a human. I want to talk to a human, right? Because it's so bad. The experience is so bad. Now you bring in, fast forward to having a dynamic LLM powered voice AI. It's like the experience is so much better, but people calling it don't necessarily know that right off the bat. If they can clock that it's not a human, they're immediately sometimes skeptical, right? That they're talking to one of those terrible solutions, right? And really what they need is an answer to their question, or to talk to, to get an order placed or something. I still can't tell you how annoyed it makes me when I call a restaurant and it says, sorry, we don't take orders over the phone. And like, I'm calling because I need to place the order over the phone. Like, I need something that's specific to your menu that I've maybe had before that you do when I call, but it's not on your online ordering, or there's no special requests allowed on your online ordering, or, maybe I've been ordering this one thing from this restaurant for 10 years now, and I can't order it that way on DoorDash, right? So there's so many reasons. Or maybe I'm calling because I want to ask if I can bring my dog to your restaurant, or you have high chairs and that's not on your website. Now, if you just have a robot there's no way to like get the answer to that question the old way, then I'm going to have a bad experience. We can answer all of those questions. We have the context of everything that you need to know about the restaurant is known by our voice AI, because the owners are able to do that, right? Are able to kind of train the AI. It can take the order and send it directly to the point of sale. Toast, Square, Clover, spot on, right? The big point of sale systems. We partner with all of them. We integrate with all of them. Yeah, that part was interesting. I didn't necessarily clock how much people hated like the old phone robots, but I guess I did too. So it's fair. It's a fair criticism there.
Yeah. Well, I think also the use case determines how much you hate it too. I agree with you. When I call Wells Fargo up and I go through like 3 or 4 different prompts before I'm actually getting to the right person, or sometimes
you don't even get it.
Or you don't get it, or you get to that person and it's not the right person. You got to go to somewhere else, and it's like frustrating. So in that capacity, I don't like it. If it comes to something that is helping me though, like get through a process like food, I would not be really unhappy about that. Like, and I don't care if it's real or not real. Just get me the order online, or take the order so when I go there to pick it up, it's already there for me. Like that type of stuff, I think, is a great use case. I think that's where you see a lot of value in systems like this. We see voice AI penetrating various markets. I think it's like a great, like even for our business, like we help companies build, grow, scale. We help, companies hire and recruit and interview, and voice AI is, a big part of our future. Right? Like you can set it up where it's actually interviewing your candidates, right? You can set it up where it's, creating value for you, it's saving you time and also providing, a benefit for whoever you're talking with, whether it's a candidate or a customer. So I understand there's real value. There's also a lot of players in this space, right? So
Sure.
like AI is coming up, and it doesn't take a ton to vibe code something now. Vibe coding it and scaling it and making it secure and all that does play a part to it. But through your lens, having been in the market longer
Yeah.
than others, what's creating a real moat for you today? Is this kind of like the wedge into a
Yeah.
company with
Yeah.
broader value?
Yeah, I would say here, there's a couple answers to your question. I think the first answer that is important to understand is I think a lot of people think that it's easy to vibe code a vertical voice AI solution. That might be true in certain verticals. When you talk about restaurant voice AI, it is incredibly easy to vibe code a demo that sounds good, right? That sounds like it would take your order and it would do it correctly, right? And you could feed it a menu. Now, that's about 5% of building the product. When you get to the ontology of restaurants across the country and how different people order different food items and what they call a sandwich in one area versus a sub in a different area, the complexity of different type of restaurant menus, how those need to be ingested into your voice AI, what type of models work the best. And then the most important thing, right, is partnering and integrating with the solutions that live at the restaurant, right, that they're already using, right? The point of sale system, the reservation management system. If you don't have the integrations into those tools, your tool is useless or actually probably more unhelpful than it is helpful. If I take an order and I send it to you like it was crazy. We would get these requests early on when there's a million different point of sale systems out there. There's literally I don't know, I want to say a million. There's like 1,000 probably. And we would get people that called Lohman and said, hey, I want to use Lohman. I really need this at my restaurant, but I use, XYZ point of sale. And we're like, unfortunately, we don't have an integration with that. You can use our tool that doesn't integrate with the POS, but it's not going to take orders. We don't do that. They would be like, well, why can't you just send me the orders to my email or text me the orders? And we'd be like, no, trust me, that's going to make more work for you. Right. And so the integrations and partnerships closely with the point of sale system, I think when you get into vertical voice AI, you start when you get to vertical voice AI, there are so many intricate workflows, integrated systems you need to integrate with, specific ontology of the type of business that you're building a voice AI for, that it's actually not that easy to build a successful tool, a tool that actually works, right? But you're right, it is easier than ever to build tools. So we do have more competitors. So then you get into the moat stuff, right? There's a couple of different sides of this. Number one, it's go to market. We just think we're better at go to market than everybody else. And that's, I think moats in these days are just kind of, to be fair, I don't want to, BS, right? Sure, if you're building a lab or some specialized AI model, right, with there's some instances in which moats, previously SaaS, or marketplaces and network effects, those type of moats make sense. If you're building a vertical AI tool for a business, right, your ability to get that tool into the hands of thousands and then tens of thousands of businesses quickly is your moat. Because once you do that, then the next step is, okay, now we have data on a million different things that we didn't know about how these restaurant calls go that make the product better and allow us to build other products. You asked us if we're going to build other products. We have a suite of other really interesting kind of a platform of really interesting products that are coming to the table for Lohman. I'm not going to talk too much about what we're going to be building right now. Voice is the linchpin and kind of the wedge that's necessary for us to start that. And what makes voice so important as the wedge are a couple things. It's such the ROI positive product. Restaurant owners beg for it. That's one. Number two, the data is super rich. This was a black box for restaurants before. It's a black box for any business that's using voice AI before. You had no idea what people were saying on the phone. Those conversations just gone. Now we have really interesting data that you just never had before and you could never get before, right? Somebody goes online to order, you know what they ordered, you know their address if they order delivery, and you know their name, their phone number, and email, right? You don't know what they're dining. You don't know if they asked if you had key lime pie in their head. Let me scroll through and see if I can find something. No, like you get very limited data when you talk to, or when we talk about online ordering or digital ordering. When you talk voice, people ask the most questions. And so I hope I answered your question to a degree there. That's kind of how we think about it and where we're going.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, like we work with, hundreds and hundreds of startups today. And to your point, like we always ask them as they're growing and hiring, like, what is it that you actually need now? And they have the product, they've built it. It's their messaging. Like they have to figure out how to get above the noise because there's so much competition coming to the market. So that's one. And then number two is, the go to market. Like how can they get to market differently, faster, better? Everyone's got databases. Everyone's got email messages. Everyone's got sequences, outside of that, how are you getting in front of companies and what are you doing differently? So I think it's like the fact that that's like a specialty that you personally have as the leader.
Yeah.
It can fast track and stay ahead of the competition if you do it right. And, maybe just for some of the other entrepreneurs that are listening to the show as well, what can you share with them that would be helpful from just a go-to-market? You mentioned a book that you kind of took you down a path that's gotten you maybe to where you're at now, where you started. But like, what are some of the things that founders should be thinking about when it comes to go-to-market? Systems, process, costs, what should they be thinking about?
Yeah, I think I have a unique perspective on this because I've done it for a few businesses, and especially this one, we've been really successful. Here's what I would do if I was starting a business today and I didn't know go to market very well. I would first pick between one of really two. If you're building a B2B AI or SaaS business where you're selling to, businesses, right? Like if you're doing a consumer business, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm talking about B2B SaaS or B2B AI, right? I would start with one or two or one of two kind of modalities for go-to-market. Cold email or paid ads. Those two. That's it, right? You need to identify where your customers live. The first thing you need to do is identify where your customers are, okay? So if you're selling to CFOs, right, they're probably on LinkedIn. If you're selling to restaurant owners, they're probably on Meta and, Instagram, right? Like they're not hanging out on LinkedIn that often, right? SMB restaurant owners. So identify where your customers are, pick one of two, or you could do both if you have the money or if you want to do both modalities for reaching out to these people, right? Cold email in 2026 is a crazy game. And that's how I started. Nowadays you have to I had to spin up 27 emails and 50 domains, and you have to use tools like Instantly. There's a lot of infrastructure that goes into building real cold email now, but I was able to send thousands of emails every day. When I started, I was sending a couple hundred every day. And then I grew it. And then I started doing paid ads, right? Those are the two initial ways that just tactically, that's what you should do to start. You're going to find out really quick if people want your service. And then, but at the same time, right? Assume you're going to be successful, because if you're not successful anyway. Assume you're going to be successful and start laying the foundation for what will come later. Now, right, 80% of our leads come from organic or some sort of earned source, organic, SEO, LLM, what do you call GEO, partners, right? About 80% of our leads, and 80% of our leads come inbound. So only 20% of our pipeline, which grows it's growing super fast every day, is coming from an outbound team of BDRs, right? 80% still comes inbound and just fills out the form on our website, books with our team, it's a referral from a current customer. So what I would say is build the systems while you're doing those two things, the paid ads, the cold email / cold calling, whatever you want to call it. Start building the foundation of what you will need later. So SEO is super important, LLM, GEO and SEO from the very beginning, right? You need to set yourself up for success. There's no excuse for not doing this now with the tools that are out there. Start building media, right? What we do, I think is super important to me. And it's just, I think just a huge piece of strategy that. A huge part of our strategy is kind of new media type stuff. So we get on the video. I put out a new YouTube video every single week. We clip that into 5 different clips. It goes up on LinkedIn. It goes up on Facebook. It goes up on Instagram, right? Some of those become ads. So I'm doing all of that as well. So what I would say to new founders or founders that don't have a go-to-market background is if you're starting, pick the lane, pick one of those two lanes that makes sense, unless there's some unique go to market channel in your industry, like, oh, you need to sell to like pharmacies or something. And so like the only way to do that is to go to field marketing events. But for the most part, the advice I would give people is start with paid ads or cold email. You'll find out if your business is going to work from that at that point to start, and then build the foundation for organic via SEO, social media, paid media, PR. Like we did all of that from the very beginning. I just posted on LinkedIn the other day. We got into the Wall Street Journal literally 3 months into the life of the business because I made us look like we were a much bigger company than we were. It was a hot topic. Like you can go read the article right now. Like we started the business in like June it was April 2024, and like it was like August or July. They reached out, like the Wall Street Journal printed an article about us. It was crazy. And so, yeah, that's kind of the tactical go-to-market advice that I would give to people. And if you don't know how to do it and you don't want to get the time to learn, like get a co-founder that can like do that. Like in 2026, you're right. Like Jake, the ability to vibe code tools, even, I provided an argument why it's not so easy in our case. And that's probably the case for a lot of businesses. But there are a lot of tools that are, not so easily or pretty easily replicated, I'm saying. So go to market becomes really important from the beginning now. It used to be less maybe, and like that sort of thing. Like the engineers used to like maybe rule the world, and they still do. But if you don't know what you're doing on the go to market side, you're really in trouble in 2026, unless you're building some patented, I don't know, space drug or something like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the trends that we're seeing, we're picking up the signals of like where the hiring demands are. And it used to be, engineers build a product or you build a company and you scale it and it's founder led and, you're out there in the trenches making it happen. At some point, you had to build a marketing team and get a go-to-market team. And that was like down the road. Now it's like, I built the product. I need go-to-market leaders now. Like we got to get traction today. So I think that it's important. A little more tactical on that aspect of it. You talked about email outreach, you talked about ads. Are there specific tools that you think out of the thousands that are out there today that are worth looking at? Maybe one or two that are worth trying for the solopreneur that's out there. He's got a product and he's like, I don't know where to start. I can be on LinkedIn. I can go to YouTube. I can do all the research, but what's proven? What works? Outreach, let's just call it email today. What's one? You talked about multiple emails. I know there's Landbase and other newer systems that come out where they spin up domains for you and you're warming them up and being able to send out sequences, pretty quickly. And like, what are some products that they should be thinking about?
So a couple things. You have to have a digital home base on the internet, and that's always your website. If I was restarting today, I would use Ploy. It's the co-founder of Webflow. Just started it released it a month ago or something like that.
Coded it.
No, but what it does is what you need to do for building a website in 2026, which is like you can literally vibe code a website, but it automatically is pushing out, SEO optimized pages while you sleep and in amazing branded style, right? So that's one is that. And then, there's a company called Origami that I really like. Funny enough, we don't actually use that, but the tool, we have kind of like a custom in-house system built because we do a lot of it. But if I was starting, I would use that for sure. It literally like goes out, finds your ICP, builds a list, puts together personalized emails for it. It does everything for you. Like I used to have to write the emails myself just 2 years ago, right? And now this stuff is literally like, put your website in and then it will just scrape like, who's your ICP? Okay, that's your ICP. Your ICP is restaurant owners with 10 to 50 locations in the US that use Toast. Okay, great. Bam. Now I'm going to go find every single one of those customers. I'm going to write a personalized message for them. It's crazy. So that one, Origami, it's going to call like Origami Agents or something like that. I'm not really sure. It's great. Ploy AI for your website. If you want to do LinkedIn, I don't know if Origami does LinkedIn. It might. Clodo AI though, CLODO.ai does LinkedIn, like one-to-one specialized outreach. If you're doing cold email at scale, you're going to use Instantly or Smart Lead for sure. email bison. Cold email is a tough one now, though. I'll be honest. Just in the last 2 years, it's turned into quite a different ball game.
Yeah.
Staying ahead of it is like I was paying someone for a while like to do it, and just we weren't seeing the ROI. Like it just wasn't there anymore. Back then it was, but yeah, now staying ahead of like the spam filters, and it's just crazy. So
Yeah.
that would be my tactical advice.
Yeah. Really cool. And just kind of end on that, being pulled up in the LLMs, like everyone's talking about how I do that. So
Yeah.
the SEO is important, the content creation, the organic content, like, they're scraping the internets daily. So that, it's helping you get in there, but there still are strategies and tactics about, putting brackets around titles and there's like little things that work, that help. I mean, yesterday for the first time, really, I mean, we've had it a few times now, but yeah, we had a company call in and, they're like, hey, we need to hire some forward deployed engineers and here's where they're at and here's what they do and blah, blah, blah. And, at the end, I said, how'd you find us? And their response was, well, in the LLMs, I was on
Yeah.
Claude and I was on
Yep.
ChatGPT and we haven't really done a ton there. We recently just took our podcast. We've now done almost 300 and the transcripts we put on our website.
Smart.
And I think that's starting to help because we just started that like literally 3 days ago. And like now we're starting to see leads we hadn't seen before. So, but they are coming up and they're like, yeah, you guys, whatever you're doing, you're coming up in there. And I'm like, okay, cool. Where you guys located?
Good.
A different part of the US. And so that's just like a signal that we learn, but it's not something that someone told us you should do that. Right. So like, I just want to share that type of stuff and doing this kind of content for you too. It should help. Right. So
yeah, doing content at scale, right? From the very beginning, we were blogging with like AI tools and writing like I would stay ahead of this stuff. It's gone from 3% to 5%, like 3% in like, I think it was like October of last year to now 10% of our pipeline comes from LLMs.
Nice.
And we do like a lot of work on that and it pays. Like I'm not going to show you like if you just go to the tools, you can see it. We use one called Prompt Watch. We use Ahrefs and that sort of stuff to watch our GEO progress, but Prompt Watch is a cheaper one. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. It's like all of these things are important in 2026. Like you can't just do one of them. Like you need to actually kind of start doing all of them. I would say that if you're just starting out, though, doing one is fine. And probably what you should do, just focus on that.
Yeah. Well, I always like to leave a little time at the end of the podcast to share kind of where growth is from just a people perspective. I know you're building, you're growing, you're scaling.
Yeah.
In today's world, you don't need as many people as you used to engineer. And at some level, you need more people in different parts of the company. But 2 questions. One, how do you look at hiring today? And when you're talking to candidates, what's changed, if anything, in terms of how AI fluent they are?
Yeah.
AI pilled, whatever you want to call it. Like how are you now talking to candidates and what are you looking for when you're hiring for your startup today?
Yeah, I mean, our business is very AI pilled, if you want to call it that. Like our sales team spends 50% of their time in Claude or Claude Code, right? Much of our so much of our go to market is propped up on processes and that are AI, like AI enabled or AI first, right? Like we don't do cold outreach as much anymore because it's at like spray and pray. It's all very hyper personalized, but like every single sequence that a BDR does now is funneled through LLMs. It's personalized based on contextual information about the customer. So all of that to say, like our business is very like quote AI pilled. So it depends on the role you're hiring for, but what we do, I mean, honestly, at this point, really, it's just when we do engineering interviews, you can really quickly pull it out of somebody and see when you're doing, kind of side-by-side coding, like how well they're able to use the AI tools. But if it's for anything in the marketing or sales or growth kind of side of the house, I ask them to just show me something that they've built, that they vibe coded. And if they've never done it, it's pretty easy. I would just say it's pretty easy to quickly figure out if somebody knows the tools or can use them.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. It's not too hard to kind of pull it out of the person.
So it is required for your company, and I know for others too, that
Oh
they
yeah,
should be vibe coding. They should be thinking like a systems builder, systems thinking. How can I do my job better, differently? How can I automate my tasks? How could I expedite how I operate? How I can do
absolutely.
things when I'm not in seat that can get done, and being able to show that to a founder or any company, right? I mean, it's kind of what we're seeing across the board as well.
Incredibly important, I think. If I was 20, I mean, I'd be so excited if I was, we have some interns in here right now, and I would just like, I'm so envious. Like, if I was their age right now, like that, like I just had a kid 7 months ago, and, life is crazy, and it's the
Yeah.
best, obviously. But like these kids, like they don't have any ties,
Right.
they don't have anything tying them down right now. Like they could just go out, like they're building, they're alive and coming up in the world at the probably most exciting time ever. So
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Really,
lucky
really good
them.
time. So in terms of growth, talk about, are there roles or areas within the
Oh yeah.
company? Feel free to share that if they find you, if they connect with you. It's great. It's all free. We're just trying to give you some visibility here.
Yeah. We're hiring like crazy across every role, really. Engineering, customer success. All of our roles are listed on our website. We're hiring, forward deployed engineers. We're hiring a chief of staff, software engineers, go to market engineers, salespeople, customer success people, BDRs. Like all of the roles are listed on our website. And so please go and check out Lohman.ai, Loman.ai. And if you're a restaurant owner happen to be listening to this show, like we'd love to answer your phone for you.
Yeah. Really cool. Well, Christian, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story. Really appreciate you spending your time with us today. And for the listeners for listening, appreciate you spending it with us as well. I'm your host, Jay Karen Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to catch up with you all in the next episode. Until then, Christian, the world, take care. If you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. And follow us on YouTube, where we go behind the scenes to learn what it takes to be a startup founder.